Motorboat Monthly's news editor Sue Pelling and deputy editor of Practical Boat Owner David Pugh talk red diesel with Gus Lewis, the RYA's head of government affairs.
Gus, why did the HMRC issue a statement on the 20th of February and what were they trying to achieve? Can you clarify what sparked the recent move?
Last July, the European Commission issued infraction proceedings against the UK for the UK's continued use of red diesel for recreational craft. And our understanding is that what the government announced 3 weeks ago was intended to do was to satisfy the Commission and enable those infraction proceedings to be withdrawn. We're not entirely sure what the Minister was seeking to achieve by the announcement that she made 3 weeks ago, because it bore no resemblance to what the government had actually proposed in its legislation. But our understanding since then from Revenue and Customs is that their aspiration is that this revised declaration will enable the Commission to withdraw its infraction proceedings.
Okay, so what was your initial reaction to the statement of the RYA? What procedure did you take to encourage the HMRC to rethink the wording?
The original wording that the government drafted would have required boaters to make a false declaration by acknowledging a legal situation that didn't exist. We therefore objected strongly to that proposed wording. We encouraged the government to withdraw the consultation until they got it right. They weren't prepared to do that, but in the intervening time they have taken on board our objections and those of other boaters who've responded to the consultation and revised their wording, so at least it now reflects the international legal position.
Good.
Well, although the UK government has not made it unlawful for reduced duty fuel bought in the UK to be used outside UK waters, the statement signed by boat owners from the 1st of April this year when buying fuel will now acknowledge that doing so does not affect any restrictions or prohibitions under the law of another member state that apply within the waters of that member state. Does the RYA regard this response from the UK government as adequate?
The UK government only has jurisdiction in tax terms over its own territorial waters. So outside the UK territorial waters, UK tax legislation has no impact. Therefore, in international waters, there are no rules. The UK government can't impose any tax rules, and nor can anybody else. If you're going to visit the territorial waters of another country, particularly another EU member state, then you will be subject to the laws of that state. In practice, most countries have mutual recognition and respect for each other's laws, and therefore they don't apply domestic laws to visiting vessels or boats. But they could do, and some do. So essentially this declaration simply now reflects the long-standing position under international law.
So basically, guys, the new statement, can you actually clarify what this actually means to UK boaters?
This new statement essentially means that recreational boaters can continue to buy marked red diesel in the UK subject to UK jurisdiction. If you're outside UK jurisdiction in international waters or in visiting the waters of another country, then you're subject to the local rules, as you always have been. In practice, the only country that we're aware of that has penalised UK boaters for red diesel is Belgium. So it will make absolutely no difference to boaters who want to visit the Channel Islands or France or Spain or the Netherlands or any other EU country.
So guys, are you prepared to reassure British boaters they are able to cross the channel and visit foreign ports with red diesel in their tanks? Can they be sure they won't be fined?
The Dutch authorities have confirmed that they're prepared to accept red diesel in UK boaters' tanks, provided that you can prove that the fuel was bought in the UK. We've got no reason to think that the French or the Spanish or any other sort of Mediterranean countries have any difficulty with red diesel. Marked diesel is still available in Ireland. The only country that we're aware of that there is a problem, particularly for UK boaters, is Belgium. And our understanding is that nothing in this revised declaration will change that for the moment. It will still be a risk, albeit a small one, if you go to Belgium, that you may be fined.
Right.
In a letter to you from the European Commission dated September 2008, they confirmed that fuel bought in an EU member state and used in another was acceptable providing that duty had been paid. And as a proviso, they stated that the onus of proving that the duty had been paid lay with the purchaser. From what you're saying, it sounds like this is still the case, but what constitutes adequate proof of purchase?
Our understanding is that the advice in that letter from the Commission accurately reflects the position under EU law. Now, there is a dispute between the UK government, which shares that view, and the Belgian government, which takes a different view. But our reading of the directives is that that is an accurate statement of the position under EU law. In terms of demonstrating that the fuel has been bought in the UK, what's normally required is simply a receipt demonstrating that the fuel was bought in the UK at a specific location, and that marked on the receipt is that duty has been paid.
And would you need to carry the new declaration with you as well?
You don't need to carry the new declaration with you. You only need to make the declaration when you are buying the fuel. And then all you need to carry with you is the receipt that says, I have bought this amount of fuel at this location and that it is duty paid.
Right.
And the Netherlands have said that they would like to see a receipt that is no more than 12 months old, so that your most recent taking on of fuel is in the last 12 months.
And is there actually anything in EU law that prevents marked diesel being used for propelling a leisure craft, providing the duty has been paid?
There is nothing in the directives that relate to the marking of fuel that prohibits the use of duty-paid marked diesel in recreational craft.
Thank you. The EU Energy Products Directive sets a lower minimum tax rate for fuel used for heating or electricity. Most boat owners use electricity generated from their engine's alternator, and some have diesel heaters. It's allowed for in this country with a lower tax rate at the pump based on the 60-40 split. But do any other EU countries make a similar allowance, and if so, how do they comply with the requirement for reduced fuel duty to be marked?
The only other country that we're aware of that allows recreational boaters to benefit from the reduced rate of duty that applies to domestic fuel is Ireland. In every other EU country where they're supplied with white fuel for recreational craft, unless they have a separate tank that supplies and is isolated for their heating or electricity generation, they have to pay the full rate of duty, and they don't get any benefit from the allowance for electricity generation or heating.
So an Irish boat is subject to similar problems to British boats at the moment if they visit Belgium?
In principle, yes. In practice, because their fuel is marked green, whereas the Belgians use red fuel, they don't seem to encounter anywhere near the same sort of problems.
Going on to the Belgian issue, why is it that if you enter Belgian waters with red fuel in your tank, there is a risk of being prosecuted despite having paid duty on the red fuel in the UK? What is the current status with Belgium?
The Belgian authorities have prohibited the use of red diesel in recreational craft. Our understanding is that this is primarily to prevent the abuse of red diesel in Belgium by recreational boaters. In other words, to stop Belgian boaters from using cheap diesel that they have bought from an agricultural supplier or other supplier. The problem is that because they have legislated to prevent the use of red diesel, then even if you've got your red diesel somewhere else, either in the UK where it's legal or outside the EU, like the Channel Islands or Norway, you're still liable to be penalised in Belgium because the law bans the use of red in Belgium. Now, our argument is, which is supported by the British government and independent legal advice, is that the Belgians' practice of fining UK boaters infringes EU law. And that's a matter that's ongoing, and that discussion between us, the Belgian government, UK government and the Commission will carry on regardless of this sort of change in declaration that the government has announced. The problems in Belgium have existed for a number of years before now, and it'll take a little while for them to be resolved.
Can I just ask you another question about the fining situation? There were several people reported to have been fined having entered Belgian waters. Can you sort of update us on that?
Yes, over the last 2 years or so, we've received direct reports of fewer than half a dozen British boaters who have been fined in Belgium. There are also reports that we've received of people who've been boarded by Belgian customs, who've invited customs to inspect their fuel tanks, and the Belgian authorities have taken no interest. We're aware of a large contingent of motor yachts that took a rally across to Belgium last year without incident, and it's the case now that a number of rallies that have been organised to go from the UK to Belgium have got advance clearance from Belgian customs that they will not be penalised. So there is a risk, a numerically small risk, that if you go to Belgium you could be fined, and the amount of the fine means that a number of boaters are avoiding Belgium. But it's a relatively small risk numerically. So
if you're taking a group of boaters over on a cruise, who would one contact to get that sort of clearance?
Best thing to contact is the marina at the marina where your destination is, or the harbour authority where your destination is. And our understanding is that certainly in Ostend, there's a function going on later this year, Ostend at Anchor. The marina and the event organiser has arranged clearance for boats to come in, and there's no reason why other marina operators or harbours at the other end can't do the same.
Thank you. We've had quite a few readers' questions in, and this is regarding the 60-40 split red versus white diesel. Mark Howell, Mr. Van den Bosch and Martin Bradford asked the same question, which is, first of all, some people feel that the 60-40 split is A, a tax subsidiary for gas-guzzling motorboats, B, a means for tax evasion, both of which the RYA is supporting with its continual support of red diesel. So why does the RYA support the red diesel, as some people feel that the RYA should be campaigning for white diesel? Also, what would the cost implications be for changing to white?
Okay, on the first question there is no longer a rebate in the UK for the use of red diesel for propulsion. If the element of fuel you're using for propulsion, you need to make a declaration as to that percentage and pay the duty on that fuel. And if you know your boat doesn't use very much fuel for anything other than propulsion, then you should make a declaration that reflects that. The 60-40 split was designed to accommodate those who would find it difficult to calculate how much they use for propulsion, how much they use for domestic purposes. And while it will be the right sort of apportionment for a number of boaters, possibly even the majority, it won't fit all types of boat or all types of usage, and it's incumbent upon the boater to make the appropriate declaration and pay the appropriate duty, and if they don't, then there are appropriate penalties that apply. So it isn't a tax evasion, it isn't support for a particular type of boat or a particular type of usage, it applies across the piece. The reason why it was so important for red diesel to be retained in the UK was not because it was for the convenience of motor cruisers or sail cruisers or inland waterways vessels particularly, but research that we did a number of years ago, sort of in the mid-2000s, 2005, 2006, suggested that if we had to convert to white and all recreational craft had to use white diesel, up to a third of fuel suppliers would just simply stop supplying recreational craft. Now, while that might not be a problem in sort of the south and the east, where mariners would almost certainly be able to accommodate white fuel, in other parts of the country like Scotland, the southwest, Wales, northwest of England, where most suppliers are also supplying the fishing fleets and the commercial fleets, a significant proportion, probably the majority of those, would just simply stop supplying diesel to recreational boaters, which means in Scotland, for example, almost impossible to get fuel once you leave the main marinas. So that's one of the main reasons. Conversely, on the inland waterways, where a lot of people don't do as much navigating or motoring as perhaps on the coast, a lot of people use their boats as their home. Their entitlement to a rebated rate for domestic heating oil is significant, because on the winter that's what they need to heat their homes. The research showed that half of fuel suppliers would stop supplying red, so they wouldn't be able to get domestic heating oil at the right rate. So for both of those reasons, it was important that we kept red. And when we surveyed our members back in 2005, 2006, there was overwhelming support for retaining red diesel.
Thank you.
Then your second question about the cost implications. We don't know what the cost of white diesel would be at the fuel side because it isn't widely available at the moment. However, it would certainly be no cheaper than road diesel. You're not entitled to get any rebate on the price of fuel if it's not marked, so it would have to be at the full price. Because the supply chain is different from road fuel, it would almost certainly be more expensive, and we would expect the price of a litre of fuel, if it were white, to be much nearer £2 a litre than the £1.50 and £1.20 red at the moment.
I have a question here from Nick Hopwood, who asks, he says, you say that if you hope that the Commission is satisfied with the amended declaration and it drops its infraction proceedings against the UK, that this will help your discussions with the Belgian government. What is the timetable for the EC dropping its infraction proceedings and the Belgian government reaching an agreement with the UK on the issue of red diesel?
The infraction proceedings were started last summer. Potentially, if they went all the way to their natural conclusion at the European Court of Justice, that could take years. The hope of the British government is that by making this amendment to the declaration, the European Commission will not pursue those proceedings all the way to their conclusion, and we would hope that if that's the Commission's decision, they will make that in the next 3 or 4 months. In terms of discussions with the Belgian government, we don't know. That it could take months, it could take longer. But if the Commission does withdraw its infraction proceedings, in the next few months, then there is an opportunity for us, we would hope, during the course of this year, to try to reach a conclusion with the Belgian government.
And finally, guys, one more reader's question asking, are we not making it impossible for foreign boats to come to the UK because if they refuel here, they risk being fined when they return home?
The UK has had red diesel available for, and only red diesel available for the water side for the last 2 years since the end of the derogation. There doesn't seem to be any reduction in the number of boats that have come across from France or mainland Europe, other parts of mainland Europe. It doesn't seem to present a problem in that sense. But there are a number of reasons why a boat coming from France or the Netherlands or Belgium might have red diesel in its tanks. If it goes to the Channel Islands, it goes to Norway, it goes to Ireland, it goes to other parts, if it's ever been to other parts of the Mediterranean, outside the EU, all sorts of places where they could have red. So the vast majority of countries in Europe accept that there are reasons why you might have red, and as long as you haven't bought it unlawfully in that country, it's fine. It only seems to be the Belgian government that is taking action against people just simply for the presence of red diesel in tanks.
So just to round off, from the reader's point of view, and until this issue is resolved with the EU, what course of action would you recommend for boat owners travelling to EU and specifically Belgium?
In terms of the EU other than Belgium, nothing has changed. The government's proposed change to the declaration makes no difference to UK boaters' ability to go to Europe or for European boaters' ability to come to the UK. No change at all. In terms of Belgium, again, no change, but there remains a risk that if you go to Belgium, that you may be fined because the Belgian law prohibits the presence of red diesel. That's a problem we've been working on for the last couple of years. We will continue to work on. We hope to find a solution. But in terms of people wanting to do their boating in Europe this year, there is absolutely no change from the way they were able to do their boating last year.
And while Belgium continues to fine people, is there any action they can take, having been fined, to try and regain the money?
There's always the opportunity for individual boaters to challenge the fine through the Belgian courts. It's not a particularly attractive option, but it is about the only way in which that fine can be challenged.
Okay. Thank you very much.